In Tennessee, the land breathes with more than wind and time. Beneath its smoky mountains and echoing hollows, through its winding rivers and forgotten crossroads, something older stirs. Stories, not just told, but lived and never quite laid to rest. From blood-soaked battlegrounds to churches where hymns gave way to howls, Tennessee is no stranger to the unexplained. Here, the past doesn't stay buried. It sings through the trees, glows on the tracks, and watches from ruined porches at dusk. Some say these are just tales passed down to keep children close and skeptics curious, but others know better. They've seen the eyes in the mist, heard the footsteps that stop when you do, and felt the cold breath of something that isn't the wind. Today, we bring 12 of Tennessee's most chilling legends back to life. These are the stories that time tried to forget, but the land and something else would not allow. Stay close now, because something in these hills still walks beside us. Legend 1. The Bell Witch of Adams, Tennessee. It didn't knock on the door, it knocked inside the walls. The tale begins in the early 1800s, in the small town of Adams, along the Red River, where John Bell and his family settled into a peaceful life, until something unnatural took notice. What started as strange sounds in the night, scratches, knocks, and whispers, soon grew into a full-blown terror that consumed the Bell household. They called it a witch, but whatever it was seemed far more cunning. It spoke in multiple voices, quoted scripture, and predicted events with chilling accuracy. It focused its wrath especially on John Bell, tormenting him daily, while showing an eerie fondness for his daughter Betsy. The family's once quiet farmstead became a battleground of the unseen. Neighbors came and witnessed it firsthand. They heard the laughter in empty rooms, saw furniture move on its own, and were slapped by invisible hands. One even claimed the witch followed him home, mocking, mimicking, and never sleeping. Some believed it was the ghost of a woman named Kate Batts, a neighbor who felt wronged by John Bell. Others thought it was something older, an elemental spirit, a demon, or a fragment of pure malice born from the soil itself. Skeptics have tried for centuries to rationalize it as mass hysteria or trickery, but the consistency and sheer volume of witnesses makes denial difficult. Even after John Bell's mysterious death in 1820, which the witch took credit for, the activity didn't fully stop, and neither did the stories. To this day, visitors to the Bell Witch Cave speak of whispering winds that form words, shadowy figures that dart just out of reach, and a heaviness in the air that tightens the chest. The land where the Bell family once lived remains unsettled. Locals avoid it after sundown. Some leave offerings at the cave entrance, hoping to show respect or to avoid her attention, and every so often, a scream breaks the stillness of the Tennessee night, high, mocking, and not quite human. The Bell Witch never left. She simply waited. Legend 2. The White Screamer of White Bluff. They say you don't hear it coming until it's already behind you. Just west of Nashville, tucked into the thick woods and rocky bluffs of Dickson County, lies a place the locals call White Bluff. It's a quiet town by day, but once the sun slips beneath the trees, a legend awakens that has chilled generations. The White Screamer. The story begins with settlers in the 1800s, who heard the first cries echoing through the hills, long agonizing wails, like a woman in pain, or something trying to mimic one. They built homes near the bluffs, thinking it was just wind or wildlife. But the sound never stopped. In fact, it got closer. One of the earlier stories tells of a family who moved into a cabin near the cliffs. Days passed quietly. Then came the night screams that shook the walls, shadows that circled the house, and a feeling of being watched. One morning, the entire family was found gone. No blood, no signs of a struggle, only deep claw marks in the wood, and silence where life had been. The cabin stood empty for years, slowly swallowed by vines and moss. Witnesses over the decades described the white screamer as a pale, ghostly creature, tall and thin with elongated limbs, glowing eyes, and a mouth that opens impossibly wide. It doesn't just scream, it pierces, like a blade through bone. Some believe it's a banshee or a harbinger of death, warning of tragedy. Others say it's a creature born of sorrow, trapped between worlds, howling for something it lost. In more recent years, hikers have claimed to hear that same scream, always just before their phones die or compasses spin. A group of teens in the 90s recorded what they thought was an animal growl, only to hear a second voice layered beneath it, a whisper of their own name. Skeptics chalk it up to foxes, owls, or coyotes, but no animal has ever been known to mimic words, or follow you through the woods without leaving tracks. Today the legend lives on. Locals warn newcomers not to camp near the bluff, and if you're driving down White Bluff Road at night, and hear a woman crying in the distance, don't stop, don't look, because some screams aren't meant to be answered. Legend 3. The Ghosts of the Thomas House Hotel, Red Boiling Springs. The walls remember, and sometimes they whisper back. In the quiet town of Red Boiling Springs, nestled in the Cumberland foothills, stands a building that looks like any charming southern inn. White columns, creaky porches, and the scent of mineral water lingering in the air. But the Thomas House Hotel isn't just a relic of the past, it's a doorway. A place where the dead still check in and never leave. Built in the late 1800s, the hotel once welcomed the elite and the ailing drawn to the area's supposed healing waters. But what the guests didn't know was that the land itself had already claimed its toll. Long before the hotel rose, this ground was part of sacred native land, believed by some to be a spiritual crossroads. Add to that a legacy of tragic deaths, fires, mysterious drownings, and even secret tunnels used for illicit dealings, and you get something more than history. You get a haunting. Guests have reported everything from disembodied voices to full apparitions. A dark figure walks the hall near room 37. A little girl named Sarah is seen near the staircase, laughing one moment, vanishing the next. One couple woke to find all the drawers in their room open, and the Bible placed neatly at the foot of their bed. They checked out before sunrise. Paranormal investigators have captured EVPs of old-time music and a voice muttering, "Get out." Shadows shift without source. Doors lock themselves, and cold spots sweep through rooms like invisible waves. The most chilling tale involves the piano in the parlor. It plays on its own softly, as if someone is rehearsing a funeral march. Staff have tried locking the room, covering the keys. The music plays anyway. Locals say the spirits aren't malevolent most of the time, but they are curious. They remember the guests, the scandals, the deaths, and they're not ready to be forgotten. Today, the Thomas House Hotel welcomes thrill seekers and ghost hunters. It even hosts paranormal tours, but visitors are warned. What you encounter there may follow you home. A touch on your shoulder, a whisper in your dreams, a feeling that something from the past has taken notice, because in Red Boiling Springs, the past never truly checks out. Legend 4. The Headless Woman of Roaring Fork. She walks with no face, but every eye feels watched. Deep in the Great Smoky Mountains, where mists curl like old spirits, and the trees seem to lean in to listen, there's a narrow, winding road called Roaring Fork. It's beautiful by day, streams tumbling over mossy rocks, birdsong echoing through hollows, but by night, it's another world, a place where headlights catch more than deer, and shadows stretch just a little too long. The story goes back to the 1800s, to a young settler woman whose husband vanished during a logging accident. Days turned to weeks, and when they finally found him, it was only his body. His head never recovered. Grief cracked her mind like glass, and one night she too disappeared into the woods. Some say she took her own life, others believe she went searching and never stopped. That's when the sightings began. She's described as a woman in a tattered dress,
barefoot gliding just above the ground, but where her head should be only darkness, a bleeding stump, a blur of smoke, or sometimes nothing at all. Drivers rounding a curve often spot her standing at the edge of the road, her neck bent at an unnatural angle, arms outstretched as if pleading for help, or warning you to turn back. In 1965, a park ranger patrolling late reported seeing a figure in his rearview mirror. When he stopped to check, no one was there, but muddy footprints led from the road straight to his truck, and ended at the passenger door. It was locked, but inside the window was fogged, like someone had been breathing against it. Another tale from the 80s tells of a honeymooning couple who took the scenic drive at dusk. Their car stalled. As the husband got out to check the engine, his wife stayed behind, only to scream moments later. He returned to find her sobbing, pointing at the wood. "She was watching me," she said, but she had no face. Skeptics say it's just illusion, fog and fear playing tricks on tired minds. But ask the locals in Gatlinburg or the hikers who've camped near Roaring Fork, and they'll tell you that part of the forest doesn't forget grief. It keeps it, wears it like a mask. And if you drive those twisting mountain roads on a moonless night, you may find her too, standing silent among the trees, waiting for a face that matches the one she lost.
Legend 5. The Curse of the Hermitage Church Bell. When the bell tolls, something always follows. Just outside Nashville, on the historic grounds of the Hermitage, the estate of President Andrew Jackson, stands a small, often overlooked white church. Its steeple is modest, its pews worn with time, but that bell has rung in moments it never should have, and according to local law, when it tolls, unexpectedly, death isn't far behind. The legend begins in the early 1800s. The bell was forged in New York and brought south by wagon, intended to call the faithful to worship. But its arrival coincided with a string of tragedies: a lightning strike that burned the original chapel to the ground, a sudden illness that took several congregation members, and finally, the mysterious death of the bell ringer himself, found one morning with his hands crushed and ears bleeding, as if the bell had rung straight into his soul. After that, the bell was removed for a time, but silence, it seems, wasn't enough to stop what had begun. When the current chapel was rebuilt in 1857, the bell returned, and so did the strange events. Visitors reported hearing it at night, though the rope was untouched. A Union soldier during the Civil War claimed to hear it toll seconds before his comrade collapsed beside him. In the 1930s, a groundskeeper fled his post after the bell rang 3 times in the dead of night, each toll followed by a face at the window of the empty church. Most unnerving of all, it's said that when the bell rings on its own, someone connected to the Hermitage, be it staff, descendant, or visitor, will die within the week. Superstition, perhaps, but records kept by the estate curiously align with the legend. Sudden heart attacks, accidents, even suicides, all within days of an unexplained ringing. Attempts to explain it range from simple mechanical malfunction to high winds and acoustic anomalies, yet no explanation accounts for the bell sounding when it's been physically secured, or when it's been fully removed. Yet the sound still echoes across the empty field. Today, few dare to approach the chapel after sunset. The bell no longer calls the living to prayer. It warns them, and though it hasn't rung in years, every Hermitage caretaker knows the story. They walk by quickly. They never touch the rope, because in Tennessee some instruments don't play music. They summon what wait. Legend 6. The Skinned Man of Centerville. You can hear him before you see him, the sound of wet footsteps on dry ground. Tucked in the dense woods of Hickman County, near the sleepy town of Centerville, there's a patch of backcountry no one likes to mention after dark. The old folks call it Skinned Man Hollow, and if you ask what lives there, you won't get a straight answer, just warnings. Stay out after sunset, don't whistle, and if you hear someone crying,
Don't follow the sun. The legend dates back to the 1800s, when a trapper named Elijah Harper went missing. They say he'd been caught skinning animals alive, leaving carcasses hanging like grotesque trophies. Locals found out, and vengeance followed. A mob dragged him deep into the woods, tied him to a tree, and did to him what he'd done to so many others. He was left flayed, his skin nailed to the bark like a warning. But the woods, it seems, did not forget, and did not forgive. Soon after, strange things began happening. Hunters returned pale and trembling, their dogs refusing to enter the hollow. One man claimed he saw a tall, fleshless figure, crawling on all fours, its muscles exposed like raw meat, its mouth stitched shut with black twine. Another described it differently, a man-shaped shadow covered in blood with eyes that glowed like coals, and a sound like a heartbeat in your ears. Throughout the 20th century, the legend evolved. Campers heard dragging chains, screams that cut off mid-breath, and the distinct slap of bare, wet feet on stone. In 1974, 2 teens disappeared while hiking. Their backpacks were found near a creek. Inside one was a journal entry. "We heard crying. Thought it was a kid, but it wasn't." Skeptics call it a rural cautionary tale, a ghost story born from guilt and time. But game wardens and forest rangers have their own accounts, reports never made public. One told of finding a tree with fresh blood seeping from. Another described skinless deer found standing still breathing, before collapsing. Locals believe the skinned man isn't just a ghost. He's a curse, a guardian of that hollow who punishes those who show cruelty to nature. Others whisper darker things, that he's a revenant, risen not from hell but from the hate of the land itself. Today the hollow remains untouched. Even GPS loses signal near its edge. And the trees there, they bleed sap that looks a little too red, a little too thick. So if you're walking through the Tennessee woods and feel like you're being watched, listen closely. If you hear wet footsteps.
Legend 7. The Haunted Tracks of Chapel Hill. A light appears where no light should be, and it never brings good news. In the quiet community of Chapel Hill, Tennessee, nestled along a lonely stretch of railroad, there's a story passed down in whispers and warnings. It's not just a ghost story, it's a mystery people claim to have seen with their own eyes, a spectral lantern that floats silently along the old tracks and never forgets a face. The origin traces back to the early 1900s, when a railway worker met a gruesome fate. As the legend tells it, he was decapitated in a tragic accident. Some say while checking the tracks on a foggy night. Others claim it was foul play. Either way, when the sun rose, his body was found, but his head was not. The train never stopped, and soon after the lights began. To this day, people claim to see a single orb, faint, pale green or bright like fire, gliding down the tracks in total silence. It swings gently as if held in a hand, bobbing like a lantern searching for something. If you get too close, the light retreats. If you run, it might follow, and if you stand still long enough, some say it passes right through you, leaving the chill of death in its wake. One sighting in the 1960s made local headlines. A group of teenagers went to see the ghost light, thinking it was just a local tale. They saw it rise from the tracks, hover 10 feet in the air, then shoot straight at them. The boys fled, but not before one was knocked to the ground, left with burns on his arm in the shape of a crescent. He never returned to the spot again. Others have captured strange photographs, fuzzy orbs hovering mid-air, or blurs that resemble the outline of a man holding a light. No power lines, no reflective signs, no source to explain the glow. Even scientists and skeptics have visited the site, offering theories about swamp gas, electromagnetic fields, or optical illusions, but none explain why the light moves with purpose, or why it seems to react to those who see it. Some believe it's the railway worker's soul, doomed to wander in search of his lost head. Others say it's a death omen. If you see the light, something in your life is about to end. A few believe it's not a man at all,
but something older drawn to the sorrow soaked into the steel rails. Today, visitors still park near the tracks at night, hoping to catch a glimpse. Some leave disappointed, others leave changed, because in Chapel Hill light doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes it's a warning. Legend 8. The old South Pittsburgh Hospital haunting. The dead don't need beds, but they never left the halls. In the town of South Pittsburgh, nestled in the shadows of the Cumberland Plateau, stands a building that looks like any other old hospital. Cracked bricks, shuttered windows, and ivy crawling like veins up its spine. But what breathes inside isn't the scent of medicine or cleaning agents. Something colder, something far less at peace. The old South Pittsburgh Hospital opened its doors in 1959. For decades, it was the only place for miles where people came to be born, to heal, and often to die. It closed in 1998, but according to those who've stepped inside since, many of its patients never checked out. Visitors describe the place as a pressure chamber for the soul. The air is heavy. Time bends. Nurses once rushed these halls. Now it's the echoes of footsteps with no feet to make them. The basement is said to be the epicenter, where strange growls and loud banging echo from rooms with no one in them. Flashlights fail. EMF meters spike wildly, and people report being scratched, pushed, or whispered to by voices with no breath. One tale speaks of a former doctor who took his own life on the 3rd floor. They say his shadow still lingers near the nurse's station, staring out over rooms once full of patients. He is not. Others have seen a small child, often near the elevator shaft, laughing, disappearing around corners, or simply standing still, watching. In the surgery ward, operating tables remain as if waiting. One woman, during a paranormal tour, fainted as soon as she stepped through the doors, claiming she felt a cold hand grip her spine. Cameras have caught wheeled gurneys moving on their own. Even seasoned ghost hunters tread lightly here. Some believe the hospital's long exposure to trauma and death opened a door that can't be closed. Others think it sits atop a ley line, amplifying spiritual energy. Whatever the cause, no one leaves without a story, and few come back twice. Today, the hospital is open for paranormal investigations. Brave souls wander through its decaying halls with cameras and curiosity. But the building doesn't just echo with the past. It reaches out, pulls you, and when you step outside again, you'll swear something's still following just beyond the emergency room doors, because in South Pittsburgh, some patients refuse discharge, even from death itself.
Legend 9. The Werewolf of McNairy County, Tennessee's shapeshifter. He walks like a man until the moon reminds him what he really is. In the deep woods of McNairy County, where shadows fall thicker than rain and silence stretches like a taut wire, locals whisper of a creature older than the roads, faster than the wind, and cursed by blood. They call it the McNairy werewolf. Others simply call it him. The legend dates back to the Civil War era, when a soldier, name lost to history, deserted his post and took refuge in the dense forests near what is now Selma. But something followed him home. Some say it was a disease, others, a curse. Soon livestock were found gutted, prints too large to be a wolf or bear pressed deep into the mud. The man vanished, but the killings continued. Descriptions vary, but most agree. 7 feet tall, covered in coarse, matted hair, with eyes that burn amber in the dark. It walks on 2 legs, sometimes 4, and when it howls, the trees bend. In the 1930s, a hunter reported being stalked near Shiloh. He described a creature pacing him for miles, always just behind the trees. In 1978, a pair of teenagers swore they saw it loping across a back road, moving with terrifying speed, its claws clicking on the asphalt like knives. Their truck wouldn't start for 10 minutes afterward. When it finally did, their headlights caught something tall and furred, standing upright in the tree line watching. Even today, sightings trickle in.
A hiker in 2011 claimed something chased him for half a mile. Silent as death, except for the breathing, he never returned to those woods. A farmer in 2019 found claw marks carved into the side of his barn, 12 feet high. Skeptics say it's a misidentified bear, or local hysteria, recycled through the decades. But there are no bears that tall in McNairy County, and certainly none that walk like men. Some believe the creature is a skinwalker, a man cursed to transform under certain moons, bound to the forest and its hunger. Others say it's a guardian, a spirit of punishment, only emerging when blood has been spilled unjustly on the land. Whatever it is, the warnings remain the same. Don't walk the woods at night. Don't whistle. And if you hear a growl that sounds too deep, too human, run. Because the McNairy werewolf doesn't howl for the moon, it howls for you. Legend 10. The Ghost Bride of Canton Mansion. She waits at the window, not for the living, but for the dead. In Franklin, Tennessee, where Civil War blood once soaked the soil and bullets still turn up after rain, there stands a grand estate with white columns, shaded verandas, and a history written in Greek. Canton Mansion, once a makeshift hospital during the Battle of Franklin in 1864, is said to be one of the most haunted sites in the South. But among its many restless spirits, one figure lingers more than the rest: the ghost bride. The story speaks of a young woman, Elizabeth, who was engaged to a Confederate officer. They were to be married in the spring, under the dogwood trees behind the house. But war came faster than love. He was called to battle before the vows could be spoken, and she, against her family's wishes, waited faithfully. When the Battle of Franklin erupted on November 30th, Canton became a field hospital, its floors drenched in blood. 4 Confederate generals died within its wall. Her fiancé was among the fallen, his body laid with hundreds of others in the backyard, which became a burial ground by necessity and sorrow. They say Elizabeth refused to eat, refused to speak. She wandered the halls in her wedding dress, dirt-stained and threadbare, until she too faded. Some say from grief, others say she never died at all. Visitors now report seeing a woman in white drifting past the upstairs windows, always around dusk. Guides have heard faint sobbing from the bridal room, and cold breezes where none should exist. A former caretaker claims he saw her standing at the edge of the Confederate cemetery behind the mansion, her veil trailing like mist in the wind. Skeptics write it off as dramatization, history soaked in romance and death. But those who've walked the blood-stained floors where surgery once echoed, where limbs were tossed from windows to make space for the next soldier, know better. Canton is not just haunted by war, it's haunted by waiting, and the ghost bride. She remains pale, silent, always staring toward the horizon, waiting for a return that never came, because some promises, even death can't break.
Legend 11. The Phantom of Sensible Tunnel. Don't honk, don't stop, and whatever you do, don't turn off your lights. In the hills near Kingsport, Tennessee, where the road dips and the air thickens, lies a place avoided by many, but sought out by the brave or the foolish. Sensible Tunnel, an old rail passage, swallowed by shadows and graffiti, is more than just a relic of forgotten transport. It's a place where screams bounce off the stone, and where something unseen sometimes screams back. The legend is as murky as the waters beneath it. Some say a man named Edward Sensible once lived nearby, and fell victim to robbery, his family murdered, and bodies dumped into the tunnel. Others claim he went mad and did the killing himself. Still others whisper of a woman who drowned her baby in the dark water under the bridge, and now searches for the child, night after night. Regardless of the origin, the phenomena are disturbingly consistent. Drivers say their cars stall without warning, often directly in the center of the tunnel. Some report hearing a baby crying, a soft whimper that grows louder the longer you stay. Others hear footsteps on the roof, even though no one is above. The most chilling accounts describe cold, invisible hands pressing against the windshield,
or muffled voices whispering from the back seat. Local teens have long dared each other to turn off their engines and headlights in the tunnel. Many refuse. Those who do report everything from hearing gasps to seeing shadowy figures dart past their mirrors. One boy in the 1980s vanished after such a challenge. His car found idling just outside the entrance, door ajar, keys still in the ignition. He was never seen again. Police and skeptics blame the legends on acoustics, drafts, and the echo of traffic on nearby roads, but that doesn't explain the burn marks that once appeared on a visitor's hood, or the woman who said something climbed into her car, wet and cold, then vanished the moment she screamed. Today, the tunnel is a magnet for thrill seekers and ghost hunters. Some leave laughing, others leave shaken, and a few leave changed. Because the tunnel doesn't just echo the past, it plays it back, louder, closer, and if you listen too long, it might start listening to you. Legend 12. The haunting of Wheatland's plantation. Beneath every brick, blood, and the silence of unspoken sins. In the rolling fields of Sevierville, where tobacco once grew under a relentless sun, there stands a stately home, Wheatland's plantation. It appears peaceful, white facade, columns like ribs, holding up a time-worn roof, but inside the air hangs heavy, too heavy for a place that should be silent. Originally built in the 1790s, Wheatlands sits on land soaked in centuries of conflict. First, Native American hunting ground, then Revolutionary War battleground, then a thriving plantation, one of the largest in East Tennessee, built on the backs of over 40 enslaved people. More than 70 confirmed deaths happened on the property. That's what's recorded. The rest, lost in whispers and it is those restless dead, some believe, who still walk its halls. Visitors speak of shadows crossing doorways, footsteps pacing the stairs, and the scent of pipe smoke wafting through sealed rooms. One room, known to guides as the Red Room, is especially active. A woman in 19th century dress has been seen standing by the window, sometimes humming a lullaby, sometimes weeping. More chilling still is the legend of the Shadow Man. He's tall, with no face, only darkness. He's been spotted near the slave quarters, often motionless. Watch. A few investigators reported being overcome with nausea or dread near the barn. One claimed to hear the sound of chains dragging across floorboards that no longer exist. In 2004, a group of ghost hunters recorded a voice whispering a name, Samuel, over and over. There is, in fact, a Samuel McMahon buried on the property. A child who died mysteriously at age 7, no illness, no wounds, just gone. Some skeptics argue that the plantation's activity is residual, emotional echoes trapped in the timber, but those who've seen objects move, or felt cold fingers brush their necks, believe otherwise. Today, Wheatlands is preserved as a historical site, but it is not just history that lingers. It's guilt, grief, and a reckoning. The house stands not just as a monument to a bygone era, but as a tomb, one whose spirits refuse to be forgotten. And when the night falls over Sevierville and the fields turn black, the past rises again, because some stories, like the land itself, never rest easy.